Here we are in a empty edge instance. I want to find a low code, no code dev tool that supports integrations. And so following the sections here, our initial discovery, I'm finding, some top 15 no code. I'm going to open a new tab. I can see some YouTube stuff. 5 low code integration platforms you should try, 12, 18. We'll look through these real quick. And so, what is a low code platform? Some coding for customization, but accelerated development. No code for non-technical users. And so you kind of have two very different categories here, right? Well, as we advance through, Microsoft Power Apps, that's pretty high up. A lot of people talk about that one. We use that one at Live Oak, etc. Start to scroll through. I've never heard of OutSystems or Mendix or Appian. Have heard of Bubble. Salesforce Lightning is well known. Retool I've used. I'm not seeing Deplyr in any of this. Pega is big. And so, this first grouping, I'm not seeing Deplyr. Come into this second grouping, they're explaining low code again in a little more depth. We can skip over some of that, but WhaleSync, I've never heard of. Whaley, interesting. Reverie, Make. Zapier is really big. Interesting competition space. But again, here we are, top 12. These are more specifically focused on data grid type stuff so far. There's a lot of competition in this space, and it looks like it's hard to be a generalist in this space based on what I'm seeing. But no mention of Deplyr yet. Looking through additional no-code tools, AppHive, Noah, Thunkable, Bubble. There's Bubble again. Zapier again. Make. Late Node. Glide. Glide is up and coming. A lot of people talking about Glide. So what I'm finding is no mention of Deplyr. So we're going to do a little bit more of a targeted search, right? So Deplyr, and immediately it's trying to autocorrect to Deplyr, which is the data manipulation module in R. This is a very popular module and will cause some issues searching. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to results only for Deplyr. And we're still dealing with that problem. So finding Deplyr tends to be a little tough. And so what we're going to do is search for Deplyr code. And I'm still not finding it. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to take the URL out of the documentation here. Here's Deplyr. Immediately, this is a exciting site for dark mode. It's very readable. My eyes, go to this center space, build and deploy custom internal tools in minutes. That's awesome. And so, I'm going to click this try for free here in a minute, but we're going to scroll down real quick and look through some of these. So glue your services. Well, what services? I don't immediately know what services I can integrate with. There's nothing to click on, no icons or list or anything right here. So we'll come back to this. Build custom software, replace expensive tools that don't do what you need with custom made tools built to your spec. I'd love to dig more into that and get an idea as to what's possible with Deplyr. Data visualizations. Well, do you have a screenshot or an example of something I can visualize? Help me understand my realm of options there. Instant deployments, AI code gen, access controls, version control, Separate environments. This all looks very good. I'm definitely interested in this native OAuth 2 integrations. This touches on the categorization of those integrations that we were just touching on. I'd be curious about access controls and what that means for, hey, I use Azure AD. Is there an integration there so I can set different groups to be able to access different things? Real-time logging, can this go out to a Splunk or a Datadog so that I can do monitoring or so forth? Separate environments, is this Git backed or is this only controlled within this space? When I look at instant deployments, that's really awesome. What if I wanted to schedule a deployment? I do see version control in context to this separate environments. I'd love to see what merging looks like, etc. I'm also noticing an internal tool needs uptime. We don't have any promise of uptime or stability or any metrics on that. That'd be very interesting here. Scrolling down to need inspiration. This is interesting, right? QuickBooks is useful, Xero is useful, HubSpot very useful. A lot of people use it. We use it. Airtable beneficial. I'd be curious how much of this you could build in Airtable versus needing a tool like Deplyr. Google Sheets, that's a good one. This opens the door for folks who are very Excel heavy to have some kind of internal tooling. That's extremely beneficial. Same thing with SQL. Custom integrations, I'd be curious what limitations that has. Can I integrate with a REST API? Can I do OAuth 2 for, getting a token and interacting with that API? Or do I need to do, basic auth, etc.? Definitely would love to see some documentation in this space. And there very well might be some. We're going to look for it here in a minute. I get to pricing. This seems enticing, right? Several of the questions I had above, definitely interested in. But this is definitely a great way to get people in the door, and we'll be touching on that later on in this discussion point. This is an interesting proposition to get people interested. I would almost encourage, with all of this extra room that's on the sides, do like a Pendo pop for this, because this is really an advertisement. And if I have to scroll all the way to the bottom to get to the, hey, we're limited time helping you, well, we've missed the boat, right? Because I might never scroll past here. I might say, oh, pricing. Oh, I don't like $9 a user. I'm done. Not looking at the page anymore. Well, I've missed this entire bottom piece of the promotion, right? So our frequently asked questions: what is Deplyr? Integrated development platform, ultra fast. What is ultra fast? Cloud IDE, native OAuth 2 connectors. We're restating a lot of what we stated above. There might be a way to kind of meld some of that. One-click deploy. No builds, no waiting. What is the definition of no builds? Is this running just HTML? What is this doing? And so I'd definitely be curious to understand a little bit more of how it actually functions. OAuth 2 connectors, no API keys required. That's good. Access controls. I do like that. That's a good quip. Auth sucks. Yep, it does. I would probably phrase that a little better. And I would probably encourage, allowing for IDP integrations like Okta and Auth0. I wouldn't bridge it as Auth sucks. I would bridge it as, hey, we want to make Auth easier. How do I connect tools to database, Postgres, MySQL, SQLite? This is great. Would definitely be curious for bigger corporate kind of clients. Tooling like this could be useful and could compete with like a retool. What can't I build? There's stuff we're not good for. If you need to self-host, this is a curious one, right? As we're doing internal tools, it may be beneficial to look at how you would handle self-hosting or private VPCs. A lot of the folks building internal tools are going to have that need. get started free. Well, let's look at that in a moment. I want to contrast this with my current solutions. And so right now, I'm using both the Power App suite in Microsoft as well as Retool, and a number of other internal tools that are actually, written in React and Node, etc. But when I contrast with current tools, Retool works pretty well. It's got some awkwardness for promoting between environments. It's got some awkwardness for access control. It's got some awkwardness for accessing AWS Secrets Manager. I will contrast, Deplyr doesn't mention anything about secrets management. And so if I needed to store credentials or access credentials in AWS Secrets Manager or HashiCorp Vault, those are integrations I would definitely pursue. Let's go through the try for free and create an account. I want to create a new organization. We're going to hit continue. We're going to call it Swift. And I'm going to do sign up with email, Chris Swift, ccswift@gmail.com. All right, so we've got a verification link. I'm going to do that off recording. Verify account on Deplyr, got the email immediately. That's awesome. Doing the password reset. Oh, that's interesting. That didn't work the way I would expect it. Yeah, so for what it's worth, this is the page that came out of my email. And I'm very intentionally not choosing to log in with Google. I wanted to, be able to click to verify my account and then log in, but it doesn't look like I can do that. And so I don't want to log in with Google in this browser. So we're going to do a forgot password. And Deplyr password reset. I love that I'm getting that email immediately. I'm going through the password reset and it takes me to the same kind of page. Same exact kind of page. Can't continue. And so we're going to have to log in with Google. And so let's do Google login. See if I can. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's showstopper. Let's see. Use your passkey. All right. We are signing in. I really don't want to share this stuff with Deplyr, but we're going to. And so now we're in, and we have a create with AI or create from template. I'm inclined to create from template just because of historical, but let's exercise the create with AI. App name. When I do stuff like this, I like creating a to-do list. I like focusing it to, something that we can all relate to. Basic to-do list that allows adding items, setting deadlines, and marking completion. And so it's thinking about it. It's really thinking about it. All right. So we have AI app editor. Okay, so we have a task manager. Let's see. Evaluate Deplyr. And I have a deadline. Let's say it's today at 11 o'clock a.m. And so it's 10:46 a.m. here. And so, cool, I've added that task. Let's say I have a task, coffee with dad. And we're going to say that deadline was this morning. And we're going to go back in time. Let's say it's 7:46 a.m. And oh, I love that it was smart enough to know that this is late. Let's go ahead and click that checkbox. It's now green. That's great. Let's delete that. That's great. Everything's functional already. Let's look at some of our code. We're using Tailwind. That's good. I'm glad that it's using a mainstream library. Everything looks pretty good. So we're using local storage. That's great, but that only works if I'm running this on my computer. We're going to touch on that in the AI app editor in a minute. But, walking through this code, these are well-written functions. Everything seems to make sense. We have our active and completed. Very, very clean, short, straightforward. I'm inclined to suggest let's add different statuses to our to-dos, such as delayed, in progress, complete, canceled. That was pretty quick. And so we're still updating, so I'm going to let it finish updating. Okay, so we've got some wrapping that's going on. Update filter logic, update task rendering. So this already feels a little better than like a V0, right? Because we're able to interact with it. You've kind of combined V0 with CodePen and Claude. So I feel very much like I'm in a Cursor Plus kind of situation. We've updated our tasks. We did lose that task that I had in here, so we're gonna re-add it. But just to call out, I also think that today might be good as a default, or some button that does that, that's a little more obvious. But let's try exercising that same. We're going to put this in the past. We're going to do add task. Oh, there's my previous task. Interesting. But we can go and set these. And what's interesting now is we actually lost that tinting that we had. The red or green noting completed, etc. But the filtering also, found a bug. That's less important for now, but I think that if as a engineer I needed to modify this code, it definitely shows there's some work to do. We can look at our app settings. We've got app requirements. That's interesting. This is like a cursor rule, like a pre-prompt. We've got a key value store for, I guess this would be secret kind of management. We've got our app sharing, all good stuff. We've got some logs, just connection open, connection close. That's fine. Let's tell it I'd like to set up an integration with Google Spreadsheets to store my to-dos so that they could be shared. I like how quick that recognizes that problem. and it recognizes what it needs to change. It's creating that integration. Front end. Create Google Sheets integration. Okay, so let's evaluate Deplyr. Let's give today, in progress, add task. And so I don't know. I'll make sure you include your Google Sheet ID in your app code. This unfortunately doesn't give me a quick way to say, hey, assign this sheet as my storage or something like that. Maybe we can ask it to do that. Can you add functionality to choose a sheet to write to as an end user? All right, so create and deployed v4 to preview, loading sheets. All right, so new sheet, nothing's happening. Okay. What's unclear is what I need to do to make that work. Because it said it's plugged in. I've logged in through Google, so it should be able to access my Google account and do some of that. I would presume we have something over here. We have integrations. Google Sheets is checking, not connected. Okay, we're going to connect. I don't really want to give it access to my personal Google Sheets, but we're going to, and we'll revoke it here in a minute. Let's see. Let's make sure I'm not giving it anything too fun over here. Yeah, that's fine for now. All right. So that's connected. Let's come back to that app. All right. And so it's loading my sheets. Supposedly. New sheet. Nope. Still not working. And so what I'm not going to do is go through the entire depth to do debugging or whatnot on this, but let's maybe go and do a deployment. We have version 4 we're previewing. We're going to, we've got a visit preview app page, opens a new tab. This is nice and clean. Still doesn't integrate the way we would hope or expect. That's okay. View published app. Here's the original version of this app. So it published when it generated, which is not something that it told me it was doing or I expected. So that's something to bear in mind. You can see where it was published when you look at this, but it didn't tell us it was doing this. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and publish this v4. Let's see how instant this is. that was pretty instant. And so we can go and click view publish app. That's pretty instant. That's pretty good. I definitely don't mind that. Let's go ahead and add our evaluate Deplyr, add task. And so what I don't know is if this actually, and this created a spreadsheet, even though it's not saying it and reflecting it, it created a spreadsheet and it did write data. So if we come over to that, here is that data. That's awesome. We're partly working. So we are successfully using this as a database. That looks really good. Glad to see that. We were able to go full circle, even though we don't have good visual feedback. I'm going to go ahead and come back to integrations, and we're going to go through the process of disconnecting that. It says I've disconnected from Google Sheets. I'm going to go real quick on my personal settings and make sure I've removed that. Not because I don't trust per se, but I like to keep my integrations pretty lean. Yeah, so it didn't remove the Google side of that, but that has now been removed. And so, however it spins, here we are with Deplyr. We've done the evaluation of functionality and deploying a product, etc. I'm going to go ahead and try to spin this down. So app settings, delete app, permanent action. Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and delete that, and we have this link here. If I refresh, it's now not found, so that's good. All good stuff. Now I have a few questions, right? So I didn't see, anything for backing up my app. I didn't see anything for, putting it in Git or collaboration. If we had a bigger dev team who was managing this, or if I wanted to, look into security, etc. So, here we are in the Deplyr docs. I see stuff for integrations. There's using Google Sheets for apps, which is what we did. It did pick a sheet to work with. It didn't let me choose a sheet, which doesn't allow us to scale that up. I don't see anything for security. I see app data storage, app requirements doc. This is that cursor rules like behavior. I don't see anything for security. I don't see anything for authorization other than that internal, external, where it was a published link. This restricted where you have viewers and you must be logged in. That creates a strain on your user base, especially when we already have a Google integration with Deplyr. We might as well use it. And so if we can grant access via Google, that might be an available thing. Internal, everyone in an organization, is this doing it by email? Is it doing it by Deplyr membership, etc.? Something to look into. But there's no documentation on the security of the data you're putting in, or how it's managed, how it's deleted, etc. So that stands out to me from a corporate, enterpriseation. I think I just coined a term, but an enterpriseation standpoint, just to make sure that this is scalable for a bigger organization. And so from a final assessment thought process, can you envision a specific use case where Deplyr would be valuable to you? Sure. This feels a lot like a retool. It feels a lot like a power app. It might not be as polished yet, but it certainly is on the path. Ignoring the current pricing, what would I expect to pay for a tool like this? It depends. It depends on how I'm using it. When I look at basic business use cases, I would expect personally, with the kind of data that I'm using, I would really want to use it in an on-prem licensing standpoint, which is not available right now. So it's hard for me to put a price on it because I would want to put like an annual price of license versus a monthly price. But looking at the team pricing, I think $9 per user is pretty fair. What I'm curious about is, your users, is that your editor users or is that your viewer users who are using the app that we just made? Because if you have an organization with, say, 10,000 people, but only 5 of them are editing apps, that's different classifications of users. And so I wouldn't want to pay $9 per user for my 10,000 person user base if I only have 5 people editing them. And so I think there's something to be said there. Who do I think would benefit most from using Deplyr? Oh gosh, anybody trying to do rapid integration. We were able to build a to-do list in 10 minutes that was largely functional. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I would be curious about exercising custom integrations and looking at custom REST APIs, but also the level of security. That's going to be a hill to climb, right? Not that it's not secure, but I don't know that it's secure or not. And so gathering some documentation around that and what's being done there, that would be, I believe, beneficial for getting bigger customers on. All in all, it's a really good start to a product. I see its market segment. I see its value. It is one in a large pool of things that would compete with it. I'd be curious about figuring out how to polish and I used the word enterprisation earlier. Enterprisation. Compete with the Power Apps, compete with a retool. There's things that this does already that I like better than a retool. Maybe not better than a Power App, but it's strong and it has its market segment. So very cool tool. Enjoyed getting to play with it. Wish you guys the very best and hope that things continue on the up and up. Thanks.